Halloween came out this weekend, and I'm sure you all sprinted to the theater to check it out. So let's talk about what we thought of the movie, why they had to ditch all the previous sequels, and whether or not they might have tried a little too hard. So a couple of things right up front. Number one, I really liked the movie. It was a really interesting way to do another Halloween film. And two, to be perfectly honest, I'm sort of a retroactive horror fan. I didn't grow up watching Halloween or Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street like a lot of dyed-in-the-wool horror fans. But over the past couple of years, as horror has been doing some really cool things, I've been going back and revisiting the classics more and more. And now Halloween is undeniably a classic, but you have to watch it with context. Like watching it for the first time now, you have to really understand that Carpenter was doing a handful of things for the first time. Out of context and by today's standards, Halloween can seem like a pretty slow-moving stock horror movie. And the track record of most of the franchise makes it even a little harder to watch for the first time. But maybe the best thing about Halloween '78 is just how simple it is. So for me, the idea of doing a direct sequel to the original Halloween and skipping all the sequels that muddied everything up with a bunch of crazy lore and backstory and all that was a really cool idea. I got a chance to ask the cast and crew about their thoughts on ditching literally everything but the original.
Have you ever hiked with a backpack? Imagine hiking up a creative hill with 11 heavy film reels in your backpack.
Have you seen the other sequel?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why?
When I started writing with Danny McBride and Jeff Radley, we were contemplating what our take on the franchise would be, what our take on these characters, these iconic characters would be. And the more we explored the vernacular mythology of the further films in the franchise, the more we were drawn to the original one and the simple essence of evil. And no justification of a character, no motives, no personal agenda, just the power of a bad dude with a mask and a knife. And that was something that scared me personally, and as writers we thought if we started at the bare bone concept of that, we could do something genuinely scary.
I just think it's a unique idea. And if you remember the first movie, you want to see what happened to Jamie Lee. Look what happened to her.
In order to tell the story of what happened to Laurie Strode 40 years later, you have to go back to the night it happened. And that's it. You can't leapfrog through all these other storylines. In order to tell the story of trauma, you have to go back to the night of the trauma and tell it in a direct link.
You're never going to please everybody, so you've got to start from I feel like you've got to start from a very personal, self-indulgent perspective. You've got to choose a path and commit to it unapologetically, believe in what you're doing, so that when people challenge you along the way as you're in the writing phase and in production, you can stand strong and say, I believe in what I'm doing, with the hopes that you can make something that's convincing. Then the fans that are skeptical, the people that roll their eyes when they hear about what we're doing, at a point they're going to be interested. And if we can pique their curiousness, I can get them in the theater. If I get them in the theater, they're going to have a good time.
What happened to Laurie on November 2nd, 1978? I think she went to school 2 days later with stitches in her arm. And nothing was ever said. She became a freak. She became the girl who survived in a high school where everybody just talked about her. She got no mental health services. And all of that trauma just started getting repressed and repressed and repressed. As we started to explore that, the movie just appeared to me.
Okay, so that is what the cast and crew thought about ditching all of the previous sequels and focusing just on the original. So we are going to get into some spoilers about the movie. So if you haven't seen the movie, maybe just bookmark this video. Literally, our producer Francesca left the room, so these are unmanned cameras just sitting there, hopefully in focus. So there's your warning. Now, Tom, do we think, I mean, they focused on the original like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, a lot. Right?
I've heard a lot of people ask, like, do I need to, do I need to recently have watched Halloween 1978 to appreciate Halloween 2018? And I think the answer is like an emphatic yes.
Say 100% yes.
Not from a plot perspective. Like, yeah, Laurie survives the events of the original Halloween, survives 40 years, she trains, she's getting ready for Michael to come back. You don't need that. What you need to watch it for is all of the references that the new one makes to the original, the callbacks.
Yeah, and let's talk about how they did it too, because it brings up this whole conversation of kind of fan service. So we're rebooting and sequeling and you know, what do they call the sequels that are 40 years later? That like Force Awakens was one too. It was
Legacy-quel.
Legacy-quel.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So we're doing all of that, and part of that is you have to pay homage to the original source material, right? And so this one is, there are shots lifted straight out of Halloween. Like it's one thing to do like, okay, well here's a fun long take sort of watching Michael move through a house to kill somebody. It's like, that's cool, but there are shots that are straight out of the original Halloween. Like Laurie's granddaughter sitting in class, like looking out the window and seeing Laurie across the street.
And what's really funny, but you know what's funny about that one to me is it's because that has become such a trope, that classroom scene where the off-screen or, you know, the not really mentioned teacher is prattling on about some kind of loosely tied thematic thing.
Something that the writer was real proud of.
Exactly. Like, no one's going to realize I'm doing this. Like, we realize
sneak in
it.
this philosophy real quick.
But the reason why I thought that one was kind of fun is because the original Halloween made that classroom scene such a trope in horror movies. To bring it back in this one and then have like, it's played for laughs.
Yeah.
I think they knew the reaction it was going to get because I've seen it twice at this point, and both times it gets a big laugh when they cut to Laurie outside.
I saw it in a stuffy all-media screening, and people went nuts for it, right?
Yeah.
But that's the interesting thing, though, is it does play for laughs, and it's a funny visual gag, but thematically, like, they make some really interesting choices with some of those rehashed shots. So at the end, you know, Laurie falls out of the window, and then Michael looks down and she's gone, you know. So like putting Laurie in the position that Michael Myers was in the original is a really interesting choice. It's like Laurie has become the monster that she's been running away from. They folded it in an interesting enough way, like thematically, and it was a character-based way to do it that I don't think it was. But like you said, a lot of these moments played for laughs, you know, and they played for, they were getting cheers, you know, not oohs and ahs, or like, you know, there's the reaction, you can feel the energy in a theater when it's like something cool happens, but it's not like everybody's like, oh, you know, you can kind of feel the edge of the seat thing happening. It was just straight up laughter.
Yeah, I think it was actually, I think this movie walks right up to the line of it being too much fan service, and it puts its toe on it, and it just kind of flips you the bird, and it's like, this is how much we're gonna give you, and I think it ends up being okay. And you mentioned the fact that most of the callbacks are actually played for laughs. And I think that was the way to go with it, because folding the references and the callbacks into the movie's kind of humor is smart, because if we're gonna be taken out by any kind of callback, we're going to have that suspension of disbelief kind of temporarily broken while we all appreciate how amazing, you know, the original Halloween is. But I think the way that they did it by kind of folding it into the humor sort of takes the edge off that a little bit. And because it's so self-aware, it kind of lets us just breeze right past it, and we just accept it as part of the humor.
It gets real close. And I will say the beat towards the end with the falling out the window and then she's gone, that one felt, I didn't have a problem with it, and then that one bumped me in a way that I was like, this is funny and this is awesome, but this is not a funny and awesome moment. You know, like this is a moment that is sort of like important to, it felt like they reverse engineered the rest of the scene to get us there.
They just, no matter what, wanted Laurie out that window.
They were going to, it's like, well, you know what we got to do? We got to get Laurie out the window, and then she's gone when Michael looks. You know,
I will say that the scene that precedes that immediately precedes that, with all the sort of target dummies in the room, that's one of the most kind of tense moments of the movie. I will say that overall, what did you think about how scary the movie is?
I didn't know that it was too scary. There were some very capable jump scares mixed in with some you know, head stomping gore stuff that, you know, kind of effectively made me squirm. But I think it was right on par with the original Halloween. Actually. The original Halloween's not super, like, it's scary in an existential sort of idea way. It's just this guy with a mask and a knife who's scary, and he's just gonna come at you and kill you, and your neighbors aren't gonna help. So I think this new Halloween sort of lives up to that legacy of Halloween, in that, you know, with a little added sort of modern kind of meta narrative woven in with some of the comedy. Like, it's not as realistic a movie as the original Halloween, but in terms of the scares, I think it's kind of on par with it.
Yeah,
They were fine.
I think it's I actually think it's I wasn't super scared at any real point. There were, like you're saying, a couple of good gross out moments and a couple of, the scene where Michael kills the podcasters in the bathroom, amazing.
That was pretty
I love
gnarly.
that sentence, by the way.
Yeah.
The scene where Michael kills the podcasters in the bathroom was like a very immediate and like kind of very almost hyper realistic kill. Which, you know, the Halloween series is not known for hyper realistic violence. No. It's you know, kind of just stab you in the back and oh, no blood. That's interesting. But I thought that scene was really good. But overall, I think this is a really good horror movie to show to people that maybe aren't necessarily into horror movies, because it's not so scary that it's you know, distracting. Yeah. It's rather fun. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because every time somebody gets stabbed, there was a joke like 30 seconds earlier. So it's like, you know, no, I'm still having a good time. This is all right.
And the movie will always, you know, move you out of that sort of dark place if you know, it's getting too intense. They really know when to sort of turn on the comedy to lighten things up.
All right, well, let us know what you guys thought of Halloween. Let us know what you think about fan service in it. Was it too much of an homage to the original? Did they try too hard? Let us hear about it in the comments below. And as always, click like and subscribe to CineFix for more movie stuff. We will see you next time.
Evil is evil 40 years later. It's the same evil. He's behind you as you're talking to me. The other side, he's literally right behind, like he is right now.
There. I kind of don't want to know.
Right now behind you.